The first Five Nights at Freddy's was a lightning in a bottle, a masterclass in raw, simple terror that haunted our nightmares. But somewhere along the way, between vengeful spirits and convoluted family trees, the fear got lost. This is the story of how Five Nights at Freddy's, in its quest to build a story, ended up sacrificing the horror that made it a global phenomenon. To understand what was lost, we have to go back to the beginning. FNAF 1 was terrifying because of its simplicity. You were trapped, you couldn't fight, your only tools were cameras and doors, and every single action drained your precious power. The horror came from your limitations and the oppressive fear of the unknown. The animatronics were an unthinking, relentless threat, and that ambiguity was the key. The change began just a few months later with FNAF 2. The slow burning dread was replaced by a frantic, chaotic juggling acts of masks, vents, and a music box. The quiet tension was gone, and the lore began expanding dramatically through the minigames. Then, FNAF 3 focused the experience on a single main animatronic, Springtrap. While he was a terrifying presence, the other animatronics were harmless phantoms, lowering the stakes and making the horror more predictable. The balance was tipping towards narrative. FNAF 4 moved the action of the game to a child's bedroom, using its auditory horror to explicitly tell the prequel story of the Bite of 83. Since the location blew the doors wide open, for the first time you could move, and the animatronics now had voices, personalities, and complex backstories. The ambiguous paranormal horror was being replaced by a sci-fi narrative, and the mystery was deliberately being solved for you. This evolution of the game took away the minimalist horror that came with Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. The game became a massive free-roam adventure in a brightly lit mall. The signature claustrophobic and helplessness areas were gone. The once terrifying animatronics became vibrant, almost friendly characters. Their images softened of merchandise aimed at a broader, younger audience. But just when it seemed the horror was gone for good, the story of the Mimic. Introduced in the book series and the Ruined DLC, the Mimic is not a ghost, but a corrupted AI. It was an endoskeleton created to learn by copying what it saw, but after witnessing a traumatic act of violence from its grieving creator, it learned that brutality. This new villain is terrifying because it isn't a spirit seeking revenge. It's a cold, calculated machine that mimics voices and behaviors to lure its victims. This shift revived the horror by moving away from the paranormal hauntings and into the unsettling, uncanny valley of an AI that learned humanity's worst impulses. However, the introduction of the Mimic shows a deliberate return to the original form, proving that even in a world full of lore, a simple, terrifying idea can bring the horror back, scarier than ever. In conclusion, from a cramped office to a sprawling mall, FNAF's journey is one of incredible evolution. It started as a masterclass in using limits and ambiguity to create pure fear, but as the world got bigger, that potent, unknown terror was traded for answers, character arcs, and a complex universe. The horror wasn't removed, but it was absolutely repackaged to serve a different master, the story. So what was the trade-off, you ask? Has a deep, complex narrative create a richer world that you enjoy more, or do you miss the simple, heart-pounding fear of that first night shift? Let me know in the comments which FNAF game you still find the scariest.